Hi, my name's Fran Kerr. I'm the Managing Director of NEATS, and today I'm with my colleague Amanda Wilkinson, who's the line manager at NEATS. Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about strong brain and the window of tolerance?
Sure. So with our children, when we do psych ed and with our parents, what we look at is their window of tolerance. And we call it the strong brain. So when they're sitting in their window of tolerance, they're in their strong brain, and they can do lots of great things in their strong brain. They can think clearly, they can be in relationship, and they might feel safe. They can rationalise, and they can do all those cognitive things.
So is this the phase where a child will actually be able to listen to instruction and follow through on that instruction without any meltdowns or any...
It doesn't feel like a threat. Yeah. As they... something happens and something triggers, they might start coming out of that window of tolerance. What we get with lots of our children is they start to go into what we call hyperarousal. With our children, we call that the tiger brain.
Is there any clues that that's happening?
Yeah, so we call that the 0 to 10 area. And within that 0 to 10 area, we often see things happening with their body. So things like they might get fidgety, they might start to talk faster, tone of voice might change. We sometimes get things like a faster heartbeat, their mouth might get dry. Lots and lots of physical symptoms can happen.
So kind of sensory things, so sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. So things, I noticed that children will chew, often pick at their nails or chew or as you say, get really fidgety.
Worming about, all of that stuff goes on. And if we can notice that, we can do things to help them to regulate.
So much better at 0 to 10 then than at 100.
So when we're at 100, it's harder to bring down. But if we can notice what's going on in that 0 to 10 area, then we can bring them safely back into their window. We can do things to distract them through their senses. The bigger things that happen there when they've gone out of that 0 to 10 might be things like stomping, shouting, throwing, saying things that they wouldn't normally say. We get swearing.
Fighting.
They go into fight or flight. We get running, crashing into things, clumsiness happening there as well. And then that's really difficult then to bring, much more difficult than in the 0 to 10 area, to bring them back into their window.
So at that point, their cognition is off.
They can't rationalise. They can't think clearly. It's really difficult for them.
And what about when they go into hypo?
So when they go into hypo, we call that the hedgehog brain with the kids. And they just get it, a hedgehog can curl up, freeze up, get a bit prickly. And it's the same with our kids. They'll often want to hide. We see lots of hiding behaviours. They don't want to be in connection. They might want to move away from relationship. We can get some prickly behaviours where, again, they might say things that they don't necessarily mean. There tends to be a level of sadness, a level of shutdown.
So what kind of things then help bring the children out of those? Because presumably just talking to them or saying lots of words won't actually cut any mustard at that point because their cognitions are off.
So in the 0 to 10 areas, if we can catch it quickly enough, we can distract through their senses. So oral regulation is one of the quickest ways to help a child to regulate.
Why is that?
So the reason is that if we think about that first year attachment cycle, the way that a baby would regulate would be back through feeding. So suckling, it would be that oral regulation.
So that first connection with a human that is going to be connective to them would normally be through feeding.
And soothing through that. So oral regulation is really big. We use lots of sweets, lollies, sour things can be really good, things that melt in their mouth. I've got children that I work with that like really minty taste, something that's got a snap that can bring them out of the moment that they're in and really help them bring them back to the moment.
To the here and the now. Rather than being, because presumably when they're in either tiger brain or hedgehog brain, they're not fully present and that they're kind of stuck back there in the trauma.
We call that the before feeling rather than the now feeling. And other things that we can do are things like sound, sight, touch, to help them to regulate.
So lots of movement.
Moving is a big one. We play lots of balloon tennis in the room, get our bodies moving, up regulation. But also the down regulation is really important as well, because our kids haven't always had that experience early on of the stretching out of their window of tolerance. And so we redo that for them in the room, and we ask parents to do that at home with them too.
So in normal healthy households, a parent would be doing things like they would kind of excite the child and be up-regulating them, and then after playing for a little bit they would then soothe and regulate and down-regulate them, and that helps stretch that window. So are you saying then that the children that come to us have a much narrower window?
They have a much smaller window, yeah.
Okay, so would you agree then that lots of parents see them come out of that window really quickly?
Really quick. Yeah. We often get parents who'll come in and they'll say to us, there's no 0 to 10, there's no signs. And there is, it's just that it happens so quickly at first, we can't always recognise that.
Okay. So as soon as is it useful to use lots of words in that period?
No.
Okay, so what would a parent say or do?
So we go back to that really simple early language that we use. We attune to the child and recognise that something's difficult for them and empathise with them, but we keep our language really, really simple. So we might say something like, I'm seeing that this is really tricky for you. Come on, let's go and get a snack together. Let's hop to the kitchen like a bunny, and really distract them using all of that sensory stuff that we've just spoke about.
So what would you use for a teenager? Because we might have lots of parents that might be watching this and think, well, that's okay for a little one, but what might you do for a teenager?
So for a teenager, much the same, but adapted. So we might say, you know what, I'm realising that this is really difficult right now. Come on, let's go and get a snack together. Have a walk together, walk the dog. Movement is good with our teenagers, but oral regulation is really helpful as well.
Yeah, teenagers love to eat, don't
they do.
Another good one that I find with teenagers is kind of distraction. So I might say to a teenager, oh, you seen my keys? I've put my keys down. Or have you seen my phone?
Yeah.
And then immediately they're kind of searching and helping look for that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.